All right, we're going to get started. Thank you, everyone, for attending week 2 of the Food as Medicine webinar. Here we have Bree with Open Arms of Minnesota, and she is going to be taking it over.
Perfect. Thank you, Naomi. I'm just gonna share my screen real quick. All right. Well, hello everybody. Like Naomi mentioned, my name is Bree Tolbert-Sofer, and I am the program director with Open Arms of Minnesota, and I'm also one of the registered dietitians here, and I will be leading tonight's session, which is called Healthy Eating and Nutrient Recommendations. I also want to mention that we have one of our other registered dietitians, Shengying Vu, is also on the call. She's here tonight just observing and also to potentially assist with answering questions. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So jumping right in, this might be a repeat information for any of you who were at last week's event, but just providing a brief overview of Open Arms of Minnesota and the services that we provide. So Open Arms is a nonprofit that prepares and delivers medically tailored meals free of cost to critically ill Minnesotans and their loved ones. All of the services that we offer are listed here, but ultimately we provide made from scratch medically tailored meals paired with nutrition, education, and counseling from our registered dietitians. Our home deliveries, we make them as convenient as possible for our clients, and our meals are made with all nutritious ingredients. There is no cost, no waiting list, no income requirements for our services, and we provide deliveries for our clients' caregivers and dependents as well. And we also provide our clients with a community of kindness and love when they are on our program.
Sorry, Bree, one thing, we can't see the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Let me try this again. I apologize. Let's see. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So sorry about that. Okay, so an overview of our meal deliveries and what exactly those consist of. So those are, like I mentioned, they're delivered to our clients' homes once a week by our volunteers or staff members. And we provide what is equivalent to about 14 meals in a week, or 2/3 of a client's dietary needs for the week. We provide a combination of both lunch and dinner meals. So the lunches are comprised of frozen entrees, a fresh sandwich kit, a salad, fresh fruit, and as well as desserts. And then dinner is comprised of 7 frozen entrees. And the steps for becoming a client. So the first step is to complete an application. And that application includes a client portion where we gather personal and demographic information from the client just to learn more about them as an individual. And on that portion, they also sign off on our policies, waivers, and a release of information. And then on the provider portion, that is filled out by a client's healthcare provider, and that is where they are providing us with verification of a client's medical status. And that form can be faxed to us or emailed to us at the contact information listed here on this slide. And then the next step after completing an application is for the client to go through what we call an intake call with our client services department. And with that, our team reaches out to the individual directly and just provides them with more information about our services. They set them up on a delivery day and a menu, and they also set up the client's first meal delivery, which will generally occur about 2 weeks after that intake call takes place. And then the next step is what we call recertification, which is essentially where the client provides us with an update on their medical status, and we review it to determine if they are still eligible for our services. And that recertification takes place within 6 months to 1 year, depending on their diagnosis. And then this slide just provides an overview of how to refer a client to our services. So our applications are available online at openarmsmn.org/getmeals. And then once again, the applications can be faxed or emailed to us at the contact information listed here. And if you have any questions about the application or referral process, you may reach out to our client services department via phone or via email. All right, so before jumping in to the bulk of tonight's presentation, I just wanted to provide a quick review of what you all learned last time during the first session. So that session was titled Common Eating Problems During Cancer Treatment. And during that, our dietetic technician, Sarah, went over various eating problems that you may come across, as well as some tips to help manage those. So some examples of the tips that Sarah provided were managing fatigue with using a grocery pickup or meal service, for example. She talked about focusing on small, frequent meals and high-calorie foods to help with not feeling hungry or a lack of appetite. And she talked through eating cold foods, soft, moist foods, and rinsing your mouth with baking soda rinse if you're struggling with mouth sores. So last week's presentation was, focused on how to manage these symptoms when you're not feeling so well. But today, we're going to shift gears a bit and talk through how to manage your nutrition when you are feeling well. So during the first part, I am just going to go over some overall healthy eating tips and talk through some cancer fighting foods. And then during the second part, I will go over some hot topics around food and cancer. So during that part, I will talk about some various myths that we often hear about food and cancer, go over where those myths come from, as well as how to decipher fact from fiction when it comes to all of the information that is out there about nutrition for cancer. So jumping into part one, overall healthy eating and cancer fighting foods. The main sources for this part of the presentation include the cancerdietitian.org and the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, as well as AICR, which is the American Institute of Cancer Research. So first things first, eating healthy overall. We often hear about the importance of eating healthy, but why is that, and what does eating healthy even mean? It can be hard to define what exactly healthy means because there is no set definition for that, and it can be what healthy is for one person can be different from the next person. So ultimately, the why behind why we recommend eating healthy is because the better that your health is, the better that your lifespan and your quality of life is going to be. In terms of what we mean in eating healthy as registered dietitians is we recommend like a food first approach. So focusing on food, getting your nutrients from food first versus supplements. Of course, it is sometimes recommended to use supplements if you are deficient in a certain vitamin or mineral, or you're sick and you're not eating as much as you normally do. But that food first approach is kind of like the gold standard that we use when we talk about healthy eating. I don't know if any of you in attendance have heard about the 80-20 rule, but essentially what this rule means is eating foods in moderation. So in general, looking at 80% of your diet, trying to focus on really nutrient dense foods that are high in vitamins and minerals. And then the other 20% is the room that you have for foods that bring you joy and foods that bring you comfort. As a dietitian, I'm never gonna say you can never have any fun foods like desserts or anything like that at all, but it's really just a matter of eating those types of things in moderation. And as long as your diet is overall healthy and balanced, you will have room for some of those more unhealthy foods in your diet per se. So diving into more detail here in terms of healthy eating, we often hear about the importance of eating a variety of fruits and vegetables. But why is that? The reason for that is because fruits and vegetables are nutrient dense, which means that they contain many vitamins and minerals that help us keep a strong immune system. Fruits and vegetables also contain fiber, which helps to keep our bowel movements regular. It helps maintain good gut health or digestive health. It improves our heart health by lowering cholesterol levels, among a whole host of other health benefits. The dietary guidelines for Americans, these are recommendations that come out every 5 years and provide recommendations for the amount of specific nutrients and amounts from each food groups that we should be eating based on current scientific evidence. And the guidelines that I'm referencing right now are those for the years 2020 through 2025. And the general guideline for fruits and vegetables is to consume at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables each day. So say right now that you typically eat 2 servings a day. All that you need to do is try to eat one more serving of fruit or vegetables each day, and you can just kind of slowly work your way towards that 5 a day recommendation. We also recommend choosing whole fruits and vegetables. So those can be fresh, those can be canned or frozen, more often than juice, just because those tend to be they're higher in fiber and can be higher in certain nutrients than what you might get from juice. The color of your food matters. So I know sometimes we can get stuck in eating the same fruits and vegetables over and over and over again, which is great because eating any type of fruit and vegetable is better than not eating any at all. But ensuring that you're getting a variety in and a variety of different colors in is really important to make sure that you are getting the nutrients and the antioxidants that you need. Every color of fruits and vegetables provide different types of antioxidants, and I'll provide some examples here. So red foods, for example, they are high in an antioxidant called lycopene, which has been shown to protect against cancer. Orange colored foods have vitamin A, which is really good for our vision and has also been shown to reduce the risk of cancer. And then green or cruciferous vegetables. So cruciferous vegetables are those vegetables like cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and so on. They have what we call phytochemicals that have been linked to reduced risk of heart disease. And then we have blue and purple foods that have an antioxidant called anthocyanin, which has anti-inflammatory properties, which is good for the heart. It's good for managing arthritis and managing a whole host of other health conditions. This slide just provides some tips, some simple tips that you can use to incorporate more fruits and vegetables into your diet. So you can add berries to your oatmeal or your yogurt for breakfast. You can try avocado toast or peanut butter banana toast. You can just simply chop up veggies and pair them with hummus or dip to make them a little more enjoyable. You can also add vegetables to like an egg scramble. You can mix them into smoothies. That's a really good way to kind of sneak them in. You could make a homemade soup with any vegetables and a low sodium broth. And we also recommend changing up how you cook vegetables just for more variety, and that can just help make them taste a little different and help you not get sick of eating them cooked the same way over and over again. So steaming, baking, microwaving, air frying, stir frying. There's so many different options for how you can cook up your vegetables to make them a little more enjoyable. And in terms of buying groceries, so I know that like drive up services and pickup services became really popular during the pandemic. And if any of you have used this before, you may have noticed that you might eat a little bit healthier or even spend less money if you're placing your order in advance and not actually going into the store. Because if you actually go into the store, sometimes we can get distracted by all the different foods that are around, and then we just completely forget about the fruits and vegetables that were on our list. So if you can, that is one way that we recommend trying to incorporate more fruits and vegetables into your diet and just prioritizing it more on your grocery list. So you may have heard before about focusing on plant-based foods, and I am going to talk here about what exactly that means and why focusing on plant-based eating is important. So plant-based foods are foods that are plants or that come from plants. So fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, seeds, and whole grains comprise what we consider to be plant-based foods. Why these foods are important is because they contain phytochemicals, which are active ingredients in plants that help to keep our immune system strong. And research shows that the more plant-based or plant-forward that our diets are, the better off that our heart health is going to be, and it can play a role in preventing cancer, fighting cancer, and fighting off various other health conditions. One important thing to note here is that plant-based eating doesn't mean no animal products or no meat at all. It essentially just means that your diet, the bulk of your diet is focused on plants. So like instead of having the main part of your meal be the piece of meat, the main part of the meal is your vegetables instead, and you make the meat or the dairy or whatever the animal product is more of like the side portion of the meal. And this way of eating does tend to be more nutrient dense, just because these the plant-based foods are higher in nutrients than some of the animal-based foods that you might eat. A common misconception is that plant-based food or plant-based eating is low in protein, and that you won't be able to get enough protein if you eat, you know, majority plant-based foods. But that is actually a myth. Many plant-based foods have plenty of protein in them, like all of those listed here: beans, lentils, oats, chickpeas, nuts, edamame, hemp seeds, quinoa, tofu. All of these are high plant-based foods that are high in protein. Plant-based proteins on their own do not contain all of the essential amino acids, and amino acids are the building blocks of protein, and we need to get in all of the essential amino acids in order for our bodies to be able to build and use protein appropriately. However, if you combine these foods and you eat a variety of plant-based foods, you will get all of the required amino acids. So that's why we recommend, you know, not only eating beans all the time, but maybe pairing beans with rice, or pairing them in any other way that you like. I will also mention, some of you might be aware of this, but there's lots of different foods out there, like Banza pasta, which is made from chickpeas, and on these Morningstar garden veggie burgers. There's lots of kind of prepared foods out there that are plant-based that can just help make this way of eating a little bit more convenient if you are short on time. So those are just a couple of examples of those that we have listed here. So some tips on how to incorporate plant-based proteins into your diet. So our first recommendation here is to try making taco salad using beans. Add beans or lentils to your soups. Have edamame on your salads. Add plant-based protein powder to your smoothie or oatmeal. Pea protein powder is a good recommendation there. Have oatmeal for breakfast and mix in some nut butter, or mix in some yogurt or something for a little bit more protein, which obviously is not plant-based, but can just be a way to increase it there. And if you are not currently eating a fully, you know, plant-based diet, it is important, if you are trying to work towards eating this way, to start small. So start by having one plant-based meal per week or one per day, and work your way up from there. Just make sure to make it, you know, realistic for yourself. I have been talking a lot about food here, and I'm just going to touch briefly on staying hydrated. So obviously the foods that we eat are very important, but making sure that we are getting in an appropriate amount of liquid is incredibly important too, because not consuming enough can make you feel not so well, can make you feel tired, sick, lightheaded. And the general recommendation is to consume between 8 and 10 cups of water per day. That does, you know, it varies by individual, and if you have heart or kidney disease, your fluid needs may be different than this. So recommend checking in with your doctor if you have any concerns there. And it is important to mention that the foods that you eat do count towards that total 8 to 10 cups of water recommendation. So fruits, vegetables, you know, your plant-based foods are high in water content. So obviously here we have watermelon, we have cucumbers pictured, and you know, any fruits and vegetables are going to have water that's going to contribute to that total amount. So keep that in mind. And you know, we do recommend aiming to drink mostly water, but if you are someone who drinks, you know, pop, soda, or juice consistently, we just recommend trying to cut back by 1 glass a day, and you know, replacing that 1 glass a day with water or a seltzer water, and also trying to carry a water bottle around with you, which will, you know, help remind you to drink water throughout the day. So as a dietitian, it is important to me to, talk to patients and clients about what they can eat, not what they can't, so that you don't feel restricted. However, it is really important to highlight that there are foods that should be limited by everyone, especially for those who are managing an illness or a condition. This doesn't mean that you can never have these foods or beverages. Just going back to that, moderation is key. Or if you feel comfortable with eliminating them completely, that is okay too. But on this slide are just some foods or food groups that we do recommend limiting as much as possible. The first one here is alcohol. Alcohol has been shown to increase risk of breast, colorectal, esophageal, liver, and stomach cancer, especially when consumed in excess. I know that this can be a touchy subject, because I think if there is a lot of information out there that says that, red wine is a healthier drink choice. Red wine does have a compound called resveratrol in it, which is considered good for heart health, but the cancer risk comes from ethanol, which is in all types of alcohol, including red wine. So there is still a risk there with consuming red wine. Limiting processed meat and red meat is a general recommendation for heart health, but it is also recommended in terms of cancer as well. These are high in saturated fats, and processed meats just have many additives in them, like nitrates, that there is some probable evidence showing that these foods can raise the risk specifically for colorectal cancer. And then we have sugar sweetened beverages. So things like pop, things like some juices, sports drinks, energy drinks, the drinks that you get at Starbucks, things like that. And the main reasoning for limiting these is because of their amount of sugar, which can be detrimental to overall health when consumed in excessive amounts. So that's why we recommend limiting that and trying to replace or focus on sugar sweetened drinks with, water, tea, black coffee, or, versions of these drinks with less sugar in them instead. Alrighty, so now we are gonna jump into part 2 of the presentation, which is hot food topics around cancer. So I mentioned earlier that I would be touching on each of these, talking through kind of the background of where exactly the hot topic or the myth comes from, and then talk about what our recommendations are in terms of these topics. And I'll also go over how to decipher fact from fiction, because as we all know, there is a lot of nutrition information and misinformation out there in the media, and we want to make sure that you all have the tools that you need to know what's truth and what isn't. So the first hot topic that I'm going to talk about is that sugar feeds cancer. And I'll start by just talking about the background to this and where exactly this claim comes from. So carbohydrate foods, there's all kinds of examples of what carbohydrate foods are on this slide, but all of these are broken down into sugar in our body. And sugar, or glucose, which is the scientific term for that is found in many foods. I think a lot of times when we're thinking about sugar, when we're thinking about carbs, we think about, our white bread, white pasta, cakes, cookies, sweetened drinks, ice cream, sugary cereals, candy, all of that stuff. But there is actually sugar or glucose in some of these healthier foods listed here as well, which we call complex carbohydrates. So those are foods like wheat bread, brown rice, starchy vegetables, fruit, beans, lentils, quinoa, and so on. And the glucose from these foods, regardless of where that glucose is coming from, it feeds every cell in our body. Our cells use glucose for energy, and we cannot actually control which cells use glucose. So we can't say that, you know, if you eat a handful of candy, or if you eat a serving of fruit or a serving of vegetables, we can't say that that glucose is going to go right towards the cancer cells. There's just no way for us to know that for sure. And if we don't provide our body with enough sugar through food, our body will make sugar on its own to feed all cells. And when that occurs, that can actually lead to muscle loss and a weakened immune system. So we do not recommend, as dietitians, we don't recommend, you know, completely eliminating sugar from your diet, knowing that those healthier complex carbohydrate foods are all nutrient dense and perfectly healthy for you to be consuming. We recommend that you eat, you know, mostly from I'll go back to this list here of the complex carbohydrates. So getting your carbs from mostly the fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, whole grains, and so on, versus getting your carbs from refined grains like white rice, white bread, white pasta, and so on. And we do also recommend eating carbohydrates regularly throughout the day to help to keep your blood sugar levels balanced. And then I will also touch on what the American Institute for Cancer Research recommends in terms of sugar. So their recommendations are to limit the consumption of sugar sweetened drinks, which we've already talked about during today's session, and then limiting the consumption of fast foods and other processed foods that are high in some of those more unhealthy fats, starches, or sugars. Our next hot topic is only organic, non-GMO foods are healthy, which is a myth. So just an overview here of what exactly organic and what exactly GMO means. So we have organic and we have conventional farming. So organic farming uses manures and compost to fertilize the soil and promote growth. And animals in organic farming, animals producing meat, poultry, eggs, and dairy products are given no antibiotics or growth hormones, and it uses a crop rotation, hand weeding, or natural pesticides to get rid of weeds. And then on the other hand, we have conventional farming, which uses chemical fertilizers to promote growth of crops and sprays pesticides to get rid of pests. It raises the animals with antibiotics, growth hormones, and medications to increase growth and prevent disease, and uses chemical herbicides on weeds around the crops to kill them. Back to organic farming. So there's a certification process that farmers must go through in order to be able to have their farm and their products sold as organic. And in order to obtain that certification, they must use all of the practices that are listed here. And then they go through an application and an inspection process with a USDA certifying agent on an annual basis to be able to keep up with that certification. And then we have GMO. So GMO stands for genetically modified organism, and GMO is an animal, plant, or microbe whose DNA has been altered using genetic engineering techniques. When scientists genetically engineer a plant or an animal, they are generally removing a gene from one organism and transferring that gene to a different organism. And so there is actually no conclusive evidence showing that eating conventionally farmed foods cause cancer, or that those who eat organically farmed foods have lower rates of cancer. And there's also no conclusive evidence showing that organic food is higher in vitamins, minerals, or other nutrients than conventionally grown foods. So based on that, our recommendation is to include more plant-based foods in any way that you can get them, regardless of if they are organic or conventional. We would rather have you eat conventionally grown foods or fruits and vegetables than not eating any fruits and vegetables at all. And focusing on those fresh, frozen, or canned plant-based foods whenever possible. And then also with this, we do still recommend to limit consumption of red and processed meats, regardless of if it is organically or conventionally raised. And also with this, the benefits of fruits and vegetables, with the nutrients that they provide, the antioxidants that they contain, do outweigh the risk of pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers. But whether you decide to eat organic foods, it's a complete personal choice. So those are our recommendations there. Into our third hot topic, which is, are soy and gluten safe? So the misconception around soy that we often hear is that soy foods contain estrogen, which aren't safe for people with hormone-related cancers. And the truth behind soy is that soy is actually a good source of phytochemicals or antioxidants called isoflavones. And isoflavones are classified as phytoestrogens or plant estrogen because they look very similar to human estrogen. So that is just a quick background on that. And then gluten. So what is gluten? Gluten is a protein found in wheat, rye, and barley. And individuals, so where the misconception comes from with gluten and its potential role in cancer, is that individuals with celiac disease, which is an immune reaction or allergy to eating gluten, if they continue to eat, if they eat gluten with this condition, that can damage the lining of their small intestine and cause inflammation, which could increase the risk of cancer. So what our recommendations are around both of these, I'll start with soy. So soy foods do not contain estrogen, and phytoestrogen, like what I talked about a couple slides ago, that plant estrogen in soy works differently than human estrogen does in the body. So our recommendations, knowing this information, are that whole soy foods are safe to eat. So what we consider whole soy foods are, things like soybeans or edamame, soy nuts, soy milk, tofu, and tempeh, foods that are more minimally processed. We do still recommend eating those, as a part of a healthy diet. And adding soy into a plant-based diet may actually be protective against cancer and increase survival rates. And then when it comes to gluten, so for people who don't have celiac disease or non-celiac gluten sensitivity, research shows no cancer protection from avoiding gluten. Whole grain foods containing gluten are good sources of fiber and phytochemicals, which may ultimately protect against cancer. And a recommendation here is to focus on whole grains in your diet as much as possible. The general recommendation per the dietary guidelines is to try to make half of the grains that you eat in your diet whole grains. And a variety of examples of whole grain foods are all listed here on this slide. Hot topic number 4 is, can intermittent fasting improve chemotherapy effects? So a quick background on intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is an eating pattern that involves switching between fasting and eating on a regular schedule. There's a variety of different methods of fasting, which are listed here. So alternate day fasting, which is when you go whole days without consuming any food at all. And normally those fasting days are spread throughout the week. And then there's modified fasting, which we sometimes hear as the 5-2 diet, which consists of 5 days of standard healthy eating and 2 days of sharply decreased calorie intake throughout each week. And then we have time restricted fasting, which focuses on time. And with that, food is restricted in intervals ranging from 12 to 20 hours. This eating pattern became popular in 2012 as a diet to promote weight loss, but it has been researched a little bit in recent years. And the research that we have seen so far is promoting whether intermittent fasting can promote weight loss to reduce risk of breast cancer, and whether intermittent fasting can impact chemotherapy effects. And what we have found so far is that intermittent diets result in short-term weight loss, but that weight loss is hard to keep up long-term. Fasting can also cause side effects that can be, detrimental for an individual who has a specific illness, or who is on certain medications or going through certain treatments. Some of those side effects include headaches, hunger, weakness, nausea, lightheadedness, and so on. And something to keep in mind with intermittent fasting research is that most of the studies that we've seen have been conducted on rodents, which we unfortunately cannot apply to humans. So we just simply don't have enough evidence to say for sure that intermittent fasting is, beneficial for individuals with cancer or other illnesses. So, due to this lack of strong evidence, possible risks of side effects, we don't recommend it for chronic disease. Once again, for anyone who's malnourished or has a history of eating disorders, or just simply for people who don't want to, just consuming a general healthy and balanced diet is going to be better for you than putting yourself through intermittent fasting if it's something that you really are not able to incorporate into your specific lifestyle. If you do want to try intermittent fasting or have more, specific questions about it, we do recommend checking in with your doctor or a clinical dietitian that you work with on a regular basis, who can provide you with more specific recommendations about whether it is, safe for you given your condition or your specific situation. And then our last hot topic is, can supplements cure cancer? So, as many of you may have seen when you go to your local drugstore or even to the grocery store, there are several shelves typically of different supplements. And when it comes to the common myths or misconceptions around supplements for cancer, we often hear about like antioxidant supplements herbal supplements and anti-inflammatory supplements that, you know, have claims behind them that say they can help treat cancer, help prevent cancer, and so on. So some of the most kind of popular ones that we see promoted are all listed here. So for antioxidants, we have beta carotene, lycopene, vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin C. For herbal, we have cinnamon, oregano, basil, rosemary, and ginger. And then turmeric is a popular anti-inflammatory supplement that is out there as well. But it is important to mention, I know we've been talking about this through this presentation, but fruits and vegetables are a fantastic source of antioxidants. You do not need to get those antioxidants in a supplement format. And just consuming plain old herbs and spices is going to be, you know, more beneficial than consuming those via a supplement format. Something important to keep in mind with supplements is that they're not tested or regulated by the FDA or the Food and Drug Administration. So supplement companies can literally say that that their supplement contains something that it actually doesn't contain, unfortunately, unless that supplement is like verified by a third party or it's pharmaceutical grade or something like that. There's just no way to guarantee that it actually has what it says it has in it, which can be very concerning. With supplements, more is not necessarily better either. So a lot of times with these, we'll see them contain very, very high doses of certain things. So some common ones include like vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E supplements that contain, you know, like 2000% of that item. And you would think like, oh, it's just vitamin A or it's just vitamin C, like the more the better, but that's not necessarily the case. Consuming too much of certain antioxidants can actually stop chemotherapy from working as efficiently and can interact with certain medications and cause various side effects and symptoms in the body. And so, you know, knowing all of this, our recommendations are to always check in with your cancer team before taking any supplements and to choose food first when possible. We don't recommend relying on supplements for cancer prevention, and just once again, to reduce your risk of cancer, choose a balanced diet with a variety of foods. And then, so how to find reliable information. So I've mentioned throughout that there's so much information out there. It is hard to separate fact from fiction and know what's truth and what isn't. So I'm just going to go over some tips here for how to determine if the information that you're seeing is reliable or not. So first off, you want to make sure to consider the source. I know a lot of the information that we get these days is from the internet. So if you're on a website, generally websites that end in .gov or .edu can be trusted versus websites that end in .com. So some examples of some .org or .gov websites that have reliable information are the American Institute for Cancer Research, the American Cancer Society, the National Cancer Institute, or the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. We also recommend that you look for red flags. So some red flags might be if the information is promoting like a quick fix or an unrealistic claim. So it's claiming to be a cure-all, or it's claiming to have guaranteed results. And also if there's money attached to it, then you often know that it might be an unrealistic claim or something to not be trusted. We also recommend just beware of advice or diets that require you to cut out whole food groups. or to focus on just one specific food group or anything that's promoting supplements. And then checking out the date on whatever the information is, because the more current that it is, then the better off that it's going to be. And you also want to check to see if is it rigorous scientific research, or is it like a personal success story that somebody is sharing. You also want to check the author. If you're reading something, check the author's credentials or their qualifications. Is it coming from a doctor or a registered dietitian, or is it just coming from a random person who's writing a blog post? That is something very important to keep in mind when it comes to nutrition and health information that is out there. And then just going back to making sure you're checking the date on the website, article, or research that you are looking at. So I know